Good morning, students. In the last lecture we have studied Pinus morphology and anatomy. Today we are going to study the reproductive structure and pollination as well as the fertilization in Pinus. Let's go for the reproduction. The reproductive organs are called as cones or strobili. Here the two pictures are there that showing how the male cone and the female cone they develops in the cluster of leaf axis. Let's go for the Pinus male cone. So this male cone they develops in cluster and in the axil of scaly leaves on long shoots. As you are familiar with, there is a dimorphic branching, long shoots and the dwarf shoots, and each male cone is ovoid in shape, ranging from 1.5 to 2.5 centimeter in length, and the large number of microsporophylls. Here you can observe these microsporophylls. They are arranged on the central cone of this axis, and this is each microsporophyll is a small membranous brown colored structure. Each microsporophyll is consists of a stalk with terminal leafy expansion, and that projected upwards results in sterile part called as apophysis. This is similar like you have studied in cycas. Then the two pouch-like microsporangia present on the undersurface or abaxial surface of each microsporophyll. Here you can observe this is apophysis. So this is microsporophyll, and in which there is a microsporangium which bears the microspores, or they are also called as the pollen grains. And peculiarity of the Pinus pollen grains that they are winged pollen grains. So here in how the cluster of the male cones arise in the dwarf shoots of the Pinus branch, and here the bract is there at the base of this microsporophyll. Then when we go for the detailed structure of a pollen grain, it is a rounded yellow colored light and uninuclear structure, and it shows the two walls, that is outer exine, and that protrudes out and gives a specific wing like structure. You can observe this exine and results into the balloon shaped wings. Why this is modification is there? It can help in floating and dispersal of pollen grain, and intine is inside the exine. So this is the figure of young pollen grain. Now let's go for the female cone. Like the male cone, it also develops in the axil of scaly leaves on the long shoot, and as compared to the male cone, female cones are less in number. Each cone is ovoid, and afterwards maturity they becomes the cylindrical or elongated, and each megasporophyll like microsporophyll they are arranged on a central cone axis. They also shows the bract scales and the ovuliferous scale. Each ovuliferous scale is present on upper surface of each bract scale, and here you can observe this is the bract scale, and this one large is the ovuliferous scale, inside which the two ovules are there. These are the naked and the sessile ovules. Like the male cone microsporophyll, they are also with the broad sterile structure known as the apophysis. Then the structure of ovule. Ovule is again orthotropous. Microfoil of each ovule faces towards the cone axis. and this is also with the three integuments: outer fleshy, middle stony, and inner fleshy integuments. It also shows the opening that called as the micropylar end, through which the entry of pollen grains is carried out, and that integument surround the megasporangium or the nucellus. And just opposite to the micropylar end present a pollen chamber, and in the endosperm or female gametophyte 2 or 5 archegonia are present over there. In Pinus, pollination is by wind, obviously, because pollen grains are winged pollen grains, as we have studied, and each ovule secretes a mucilaginous drop at micropylar end, and gap is produced between the ends of ovuliferous scales, and it forms entry for the winged pollen grains, and the mucilage drop entangles the pollen grain. Afterwards, the pollen grain reaches from the micropyle to the surface of the nucellus, and fertilization takes place. Union of male and female gamete results into the formation of a zygote. The pollen tube which enters to the archegonium, forcing itself between the neck cells, and each pollen tube births two unequal male gametes. Again, each male gamete is with stalk cell and the tube nucleus associated with the cytoplasm, and the male nucleus enters into the archegonium, moves toward the egg nucleus and forms the zygote, and zygote divides and redivides, develops into the seed. Here both the ovules of each ovuliparous scale develops into the seed. Here you can observe this ovuliferous scale and the wings, and here you can observe the seeds, and each seed is contain a large membranous wing forming a ovuliferous scale, and it is enveloped by a seed coat developed from middle stony layer of the ovule. As you know the structure of ovule, there are three layers: outer, middle, and the inner. Outer and inner are the fleshy, and middle is the stony layer. So here this ovuliferous scale, it is enveloped by a seed coat from the middle stony layer, and inner fleshy layer may survive sometimes in the form of a thin membrane, whereas the outer fleshy layer disappears. The perisperm is the result of a papery structure which is thin and membranous that develops into the seed coat of this Pinus, and here well developed endosperm is present. In the center there is a embryo, obviously there is embryo consisting of a hypocotyl. You can observe this is the hypocotyl, then radicle and the plumule, and the seed is with 2 to 14 or more than that cotyledons are present in the seed of this Pinus. Afterwards the seed germinates. The proper mechanism which is normal for the seed germination of a Pinus, as radicle grows out and it splits the testa at the micropylar end, and radicle goes down into the soil, forms the primary root, and hypocotyl forms a loop and becomes straight, and it carries with the plumule and the cotyledon. The germination is epigel. Epi means above the ground. At the end, when we have studied the male cone and the female cone, the alternation of generation is with sporophytic and gametophytic part. So this sporophytic plant body, which is with cluster of male cone and the female cone, in which you can observe the microsporophyll and the megasporophyll. So male cone is with microsporophyll, and microsporophyll bears these the winged pollen grains, whereas the megasporophyll it is with the ovules. Afterwards, at the maturity, the pollination drop is secreted by the micropylar end of the ovule, and the male gametes through the pollen tube of this male gametophyte enters into the micropylar end of this ovule, and there is a fertilization that results into the zygote, and zygote redivides and redivides, develops into the embryo of a seed. Embryo, again it is winged seeds with presence of there. Then afterwards this winged seed carries out with the help of wind, and this seed after germination gives rise to the new sporophytic plant body. So here up to this microspores and the megaspore, they are with a single chromosome number, that is from the microspore single N and the megaspore that is single N. They unite, and zygote it gives rise to the diploid set of a chromosome. The sporophytic plant body alternated with the gametophytic plant body. So this is all about the alternation of generation in the Pinus. When we go for the economic importance, as in the first topic of the economic importance of gymnosperm, this is the large genus and number of species are used for different purpose. Male cones and female cones, they are used for decoration purpose. The dry and the colored male and female cones, they are used for the decoration, and the wood is used for preparation of the matchbox or sometimes the bats, and many wooden products are also prepared from the Pinus wood. This Pinus is also with the it is a rich source of gums as well as the resins, and they are also economically important. So this is about the reproduction, in which we have studied male cone, female cone, they bears the microsporangia and the megasporangia respectively. Afterwards, each microspore or the winged pollen grain with two male gametes unites with the egg cell and forms the zygote. Afterward, that zygote gives rise to the embryo, and that develops into the seed. Seed again gives rise to the new plant. So this is all about the Pinus reproductive structure. Thank you.